Are you worried about today's dire financial situation?
Put simply, I would argue the Biden economic plan is working.
The storms on Wall Street continue today after regulators seized the assets of Silicon Valley Bank, marking the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis.
Do you worry you'll have enough to pay your mortgage, pay your children's college tuition, enough to retire?
I believe our banking system remains strong.
Regional banks in focus once again today as the market digests the fallout of the First Republic failure.
You have questions, we have answers. It's the gold standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Thanks for joining us on the Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn, happy to be back together again. And Ken, the title for today's show, it makes me laugh. You've got in here, our leaders are delusional.
Wow. Yes.
Captain Obvious, guys.
Jeez.
They are pretty delusional, especially when it comes to our money. They like to sell us a bill of goods. They like to gaslight us. Yet they still print money. They still send money all over the world. And we are left to try to figure out what to do with our own finances to protect ourselves for what is probably a major leadership failure sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and what's the answer?
Yeah.
Let's print more. Let's spend more. Let's keep doing it. The printing party's on. Yay, hooray. It's a joke, but we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. But there's been some very significant news that has come out even in the last couple of weeks.
And we're going to get to all of that because if you haven't been paying attention and some of this stuff sneaks by, you really have to be looking for it. We're going to talk to let you know what you need to know to keep yourself and your family safe. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know. But first, let's start talking about how, as we do every week, we got into the place that we are right now. It started back in 1971 with Richard Nixon. Typically, we hear from him, Ken, but why don't you explain what decision Richard Nixon made in an experiment of sorts?
Yeah.
That has led us down the path to where we are today.
Yeah, the same experiment that's failing today, where we birthed the fiat currency experiment, where all countries have a currency, paper currency. It floats in value against one another, where the U.S. dollar is, the king. And they can just keep printing it. Before we used to have a gold standard where there was a certain amount of gold that backed each dollar, to make it stronger, make it more of value, right?
Sure.
Makes sense. That's disappearing. And totally disappeared in 1971. I think we're close, too, of the annual anniversary when Richard Nixon quit. I think August 8th, 1974, when he resigned. So it's fiat money backed by nothing. And the politicians, Jen, and the bankers have thoroughly, through corruption and through greed, have just really abused the right to be able to print money.
Because they're all on the gravy train. So the more they print, the more they can make, the more it hurts the value of all the money that we've worked really hard for. And so, guys, we're going to talk today about some of the news that you need to know. But it is the summer months. We understand the kids are getting ready to go back to school if they're not already. We know it's a busy time, but do you want to have yourself prepared for something if there is a crash or if that bubble bursts? Right now, it's the time. Write this number down. We're going to give it out several times throughout the show to call Midas Gold Group at 855-322-4653. That's 855-322-GOLD. I want you to go to MidasGoldGroup.com. Look at that website. Think about this right now. Don't you think it is worth the time to make the phone call, to hedge your bet, to make sure that you're pulling some of the money out of this market, backed by nothing but air and paper, and put it into something real in your own personal safe, a private transaction with gold from Midas Gold Group. America First Patriots. They're fantastic people. You're not calling a call center. 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653. So let's talk about that debt because the debt is building. This week, you've heard a number of stories about debt and borrowing in California, Joe Biden wanting to send even more money to Ukraine, this time north of $10 billion to add to what we've already sent.
Yeah, $2 billion to the Taliban over the last year or so.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and where's it all coming from? We saw the United States credit rating got downgraded about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. And
so what does that mean when that happens? And I've heard a lot of people say that it was either justified or it wasn't. There's arguments about that. But What does that mean to all of us?
Well, if you listen to the video from Janet Yellen, and Warren Buffett, this was like, oh, how could this be? This is the biggest mistake in the world. Jamie Dimon's another one, another person with a real checkered past that keeps coming out now with his 28-year relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. But we'll talk about that another day. But Janet Yellen comes out and talks about the fiscal responsibility that the Biden administration has showed. She talks about debt limit legislation, deficit reduction. But my favorite, she said, the Biden's plan to do the IRS modernization product.
Oh, no.
So it will provide the resources it needs to collect taxes owed by the wealthy.
Now, that's the 80,000 or 87,000 new IRS agents, obviously, that the Biden administration wants to fund and try to fix its credit status by coming after yours.
But are these people delusional? Yes, because do they understand that the U.S. debt is going to rise by $5 billion a day for the next decade?
And
Think about that.
87,000, a lot of IRS agents. I'm dead set against it.
Armed.
But I don't know if they're going to be able to raise $5 billion a day, which is what we'd have to do to keep up.
No. And it's asinine. And these people can't be serious. I know $33 trillion in debt, $90 trillion some odd dollars if you think about corporate debt and personal debt, of people and federal debt, over $90 trillion, maybe 200 and some odd trillion dollars if you're talking about unfunded liabilities. You're talking over $300 trillion for the whole world. Because remember, this is not a United States problem. It's a whole world problem. So are people in the right frame of mind when they say this is probably going to end badly? Absolutely. And for our leaders, I'd rather they come out and said the truth. Listen, hey, we've done a real poor job the last 40 years.
Yeah.
We've completely taken it, to another level. The debt now is going exponential. We can't control it. It's out of control. The interest rate payments that we're going to be paying almost $1 trillion a year now is totally outrageous. We need to make some very, very tough decisions here because you want to know what? The United States of America, which is, USA Incorporated, we are broke.
Right.
And the banking system, which we're going to talk about, is extremely fragile. There's how many quadrillions of dollars worth of derivatives, and they're just going to keep printing and spending, Jen, until this system implodes. I don't know. Maybe we're wrong.
So they can't do it. But if, what? Okay, so maybe.
Maybe we live in a bubble for the next 40 years and it keeps continuing. But I'll tell you what, I'm not willing to take that risk with all of my money, and I don't think anybody listening to this program should either. Neither should you.
So why should people consider gold and precious metals if this does burst? If what you're saying, and we're putting it out there, and clearly, believe what you want, but Janet Yellen and Joe Biden, they're telling you a lot of stories to try to make sure that people don't panic. But the rest of the world knows the credit rating of the United States is going down. The debt is racking up. The dollar has less power. It has less power globally. So that's where all of our money is. If that stops, what happens? Why should people consider gold right now?
Well, eventually it's going to stop one way or another. Either they're going to have to be forced to stop it because our money's not going to be worth anything anymore, or people are going to take all of their money out of the system, and then the system isn't going to work. Because we saw what happened with the banking system in March when there was a few rumors of a few banks maybe having bad investments. And yes, all of the banks are in serious trouble. Think about lenders that these commercial office buildings are half full. And think about that our money's not there at the bank. Yeah. So when people decide to take it out, where's it coming from? You have to realize these losses, and they're insolvent. The banking system is insolvent one way or another.
We're trusting that our money is going to be there when we need it. You're listening to the Gold Standard radio show, Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn. But you bring up a great point. What if people get spooked, like when these banks collapse, and they want to get at their money? Where
I think that's inevitable, Jen.
Yeah, I think so too. We've already seen three banks collapse this year, and we're going to talk about the potential for more. But if you want to go to the bank and you want to have access to your money and it's not there, what is the bank going to do? We always pay a lot of attention to FDIC insured, but as you've pointed out to me, FDIC insurers mean that they're going to print more money to try to meet what they owe you. And that's not a lasting solution. Gold and silver in your home safe it's taking a piece of your money and holding it privately in your own house.
Yeah.
That's the power and the control that gold and precious metals give you.
Yeah, and we all know we're moving towards a digital system, and are the banking system going to prohibit us from moving money around, taking money out? Not to mention, who wants to buy our debt anymore? I mean, is the Fed going to buy all of it? Because over the past few years, they've probably bought more than half of it. There's $9 trillion, or maybe like $8.2 trillion on their balance sheet where they've just bought these assets and they're just sitting there. Banks were forced to buy treasuries. I mean, we've heard on this program before from Greenspan, who was, the Federal Reserve chairman a couple decades ago. The U.S. will never they'll never default on their debt because we could always print money.
We can't.
So that's the plan? We're just going to print as much money as possible until we can't print anymore. So the reason why you have gold is like we talked about before. It's for those people that don't want to comply with that system.
No, and
they don't want to keep feeding this machine.
Yeah, the beast. And they don't want to trust the delusional leaders that have put us in this situation to begin with. So you brought in, I love show and tell.
Who's going to be left holding the bag, Jen?
That's right. We will. We'll be. I mean, there'll be no bag left to hold. That's the sad thing. 855-322-GOLD. That's the number to call Midas Gold Group. Do it right now. 855-322-4653. And you brought into the studio with you today the Mexican peso. Tell us about this.
Well, $50 Mexican peso, 21.6 carats because there is some copper in here.
I noticed that. Remember I said it's a darker color?
You did. You got a good eye.
Yeah.
I think this coin is special because, remember, the United States didn't make any gold until 1986. From 1933 to 1986, no gold. So one of the few coins that was available for investors in 1974 when brilliant Gerald Ford said, oh, yeah, you guys could buy gold again as U.S. citizens, was the Cougarand and the 50 peso.
So that was it.
Yeah, that's about it. So it's kind of an old-timer coin. It's a great coin. It's 1.2 ounces. I like it a lot. It's not really an easy coin to get. And for some people that are looking to hold their own wealth and get some money out of the banking system or get some money out of the stock market, which I think is a necessary plan at this point.
Yeah.
Don't be frozen out of your money. Take some of that paper and get your hands on some of these 50 pesos.
Check it out. 855-322-GOLD for Midas Gold Group. 855-322-4653 or MidasGoldGroup.com. More up ahead. It's the Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Dr. Gorka here. You're listening to The Gold Standard with your hosts, Ken Russo from veteran-owned Midas Gold Group and Jennifer Horn. Owning private money in the form of physical gold and silver is perhaps more important than ever to your long-term financial security. As U.S. banks fail, the Biden administration sends hundreds of billions abroad while depleting our strategic oil reserves. However, the biggest financial threat may be coming from within: central bank digital currency. The patents have been filed and the big banks have released plans for implementation. Midas Gold Group sees tyrannical implications, the end of cash, the end of financial privacy, big government able to see your every purchase. Could there be ties to social credit? Hear more commentary on the political and economic issues that affect your financial security right here on the Gold Standard. You can create your own Gold Standard with a call to Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD. That's 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com.
Welcome back to the Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn, happy to be along with you. And even though some of this news can be a little depressing, we try to give you some hope. And
that's what this is about. This is about a backup plan.
It's about a backup plan. It's about keeping yourself safe, protecting your investments, protecting all of that money that you've worked so hard for. And you can do that by calling Midas Gold Group. These are not call centers you're calling. You're calling and talking to real people like my buddy Ken Russo right here. Listen to all of his knowledge.
Real live people.
Real live people. Imagine
Yes.
that. No AI.
Yeah, I'm not an AI.
Only real intelligence. No artificial intelligence
Yes.
here. 855-322-4653. 855-322-GOLD. MidasGoldGroup.com. Now, Ken, this week alone, Moody's downgraded 10 banks. I know, you're shocked. You've been following this.
Only 10?
I know. But what's funny is that, and it's not funny, haha, it's ironic that we don't hear a lot about this in the news media. It's not a sexy story to tell you about a bank failure.
Well,
The news media wants to bury this so that nobody panics. But this is just sort of the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot more to come. I mean, the 25 largest banks right now, Jen, are seeing the largest fall in deposits in 38 years with no signs of letting up.
Why?
Well, people aren't trusting the system.
Mm-hmm.
They know that interest rates are higher now than they were in March, and we saw banks fold up in March because they're down on their investments, and when people start to take money out, they're insolvent. So we're in a worse situation now. It's inevitable. Not to mention a lot of these banks are lenders, and corporate buildings are, some of them, half full.
Yep.
Companies like Yellow Trucking went bankrupt after taking, a big loan from the United States a couple years ago. That didn't seem to help, right?
This isn't the only story like that. There are plenty of companies who have taken loans from the government to keep themselves going that have then gone out of business. And then what happens? All that money's
isn't
gone.
It funny, like all these
Poof.
bankruptcies too, especially with banks, it all comes out on Friday after the
I'm
market
sure that's
closes.
just a coincidence.
Yeah.
That's when all the big news comes out too that they don't want you to hear. Any of the Hunter Biden stuff, usually if it's a revelation, it's a Friday afternoon.
Yeah, and there's a guy talks a lot about silver. His name is Bix Ware. He's good. I listen to him all the time on the internet.
That's a great name.
Yeah, he's good.
Bix.
He's been doing this for a long time. I mean, talking about silver for 15 years straight. So he's staying the course, and that's what I would just recommend people do, Jen. Have a plan, stay the course. August is going to be a big month. We have the BRIC meeting coming up at the end of August. We all know they're going to be coming out with a new currency eventually.
Before we just want to stop you for a second, because I think for people who are new and trying to get in to maybe putting some money into gold or precious metals, you mentioned silver. When people call you and they try to create a plan to protect themselves, a backup plan, if you will, to make sure if the banks collapse, if the bubble bursts, they're going to be able to get their money and have some of their money pulled out of that market. What is better, gold, silver, other metals? I mean, I know Midas Gold Group sells almost everything in this realm. How do you decide what's best for you?
Yeah, and that's the point, right, Jen? If you're a little concerned about the banking system, if you think the stock market or the bond market's in another bubble, if you're a little worried that all of this money printing is going to end badly with the value and the safety of our dollar, not to mention we're moving into a digital system where they want to monitor everything, where your privacy is gone. But everyone's a little different. I think that there can be a serious case that silver's undervalued, that there's a lot of industrial applications of silver, like solar panels and electronics and even electric vehicles. So I think that a precious metal that is consumed a lot like silver, there's a possibility that it could see a big move up in price. But it's heavily manipulated, as well as gold is. The banking system is desperately trying to keep people involved in that system for as long as they can. Once people see gold at $5,000 or $10,000, and once they see silver at $100 or $200, they're really going to freak out, and they're going to understand that their money is losing tremendous value. But to answer your question, yes. I mean, typically and historically, if gold does well, which we expect it will reflect all the money that's been printed at a much higher price for the gold market, silver should do well too. It is a lower priced commodity, so on a percentage basis, there could be a case made that the percentage move in silver will be much greater than gold. But there's pros and cons to everything. The silver is very heavy.
Sure.
It takes up a lot of storage space. And if you're shipping it around, shipping could be more expensive. But that's where conversations come in, and that's where everybody's own situation is relevant. But I do think that people should have a well-diversified portfolio when it comes to precious metals, not to mention when it comes to their overall plan. And we're not financial advisors. But to me, to have all of your finances at one financial institution or involved in one market or
in one bucket.
It doesn't make any sense. It's actually, in my opinion, financial suicide at this point, because we all know eventually this has to end badly.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sadly.
I don't know if that
And this
means
isn't
a
about-
year or
yeah.
5 years, but it has to.
And it's not about fear. It's about preparation, getting yourself ready. If, God forbid, something happens, we feel like it does. We don't know what the timing is, but certainly you want to be ready. And with the whole new digital currency coming, don't you want something that's private and away from the government and government oversight? So two really important things
And
to
we've
think
seen
about.
this before, Jen.
Yeah.
This is not like a new thing. I mean, we've seen other countries, that have gone down the road of let's print all this money and let's spend all this money, and it goes
Where are they
exponential.
today?
Well, they're no longer as relevant as they used to be. So our contention is, even if the United States becomes less relevant, let's just say reasonable, and let's just say that we stop printing money, which obviously we know isn't going to happen. Our dollar is going to become less relevant.
Right.
And our markets are going to become less relevant. And our bonds are going to become less relevant. And so is our country. So you have to protect yourself from that.
We're
We've
already
seen this
seeing
before.
It. We're already
Yes.
seeing our dollar buy less, right? I mean, think about
And
it
I'm
on a
being
grand
nice.
scale.
Right
Yeah.
now, I'm being nice because I honestly think when you take something to an extreme,
Yeah.
then the result is going to be an extreme too. I think we're going to see the biggest wealth destruction in our lifetime over the next 5 or 10 years. And it could start at any time. And it's because we've seen so much fake money. It's such a fake system. It's all on credit. I think I just heard that credit card balances went over $1 trillion this week. So it's everywhere. And the answer is not, we can print more money and take out more debt. How ludicrous. And based on the title of our show today, how delusional is that to think, or are we just stuck?
Yep. So if you're hearing us, what are you waiting for? Now is the time. Pick up the phone and call Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD, 855-322-4653 from anywhere in the country, 855-322-4653 if you are near Thousand Oaks. If you're near Phoenix, Arizona, you can go in and say hi as well, 855-322-4653. More information always at MidasGoldGroup.com, MidasGoldGroup.com. Now, talking about considering what the dollar is going to look like on the global scale, let's go back to BRICS, which is happening at the end of August. Explain what that is for people who haven't heard.
Well, BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, 25 possible new members want to join BRICS. They're going to come out with a new currency. It will be backed by tangible assets like gold and land and other things. A lot of these countries are looking to do business in local currencies away from the dollar. It's not a surprise. A lot of these countries have dumped U.S. treasuries and U.S. debt over the last few years. They're really getting comfortable and in bed with one another. They are a severe threat eventually to the United States position as the world reserve currency. And that just kind of goes along with you and I have been talking about. This country, unfortunately, is headed in the wrong direction in every possible way. And we're just talking about protecting some of our money because it's either going to lose tremendous value more than likely, or it's just going to disappear.
And you may not have access to it when you need it.
Well, yeah. And that's why this new system, let's put all of our money in this new monitored system, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work and our money's frozen and we can't, get to it. That's a serious, realistic possibility. But for people that are listening to this program and for people that own gold, they won't be in that situation.
That's right. Don't trust your money, your family, your finances to delusional leaders. Don't do it. So now's the time. Get on the phone. If you've been listening to our program, thank you very much. But take action. Help yourself out. Have the conversation at the very least to find out if gold and precious metals are right for you, or if you need a new provider of gold, call Midas Gold Group. Fantastic America First Patriots. 855-322-GOLD. 855-322-GOLD. 855-322-4653. MidasGoldGroup.com.
Yeah, it's a good point, Jen. A lot of people aren't happy with their current gold dealer. Or they're just looking for people to do business with that they can trust.
Yep.
And when it comes to gold, it's not the easiest thing to find. We take pride in that. We feel privileged to take care of people, but you don't have to go down with the ship, people. The ship's going down. Eventually, the financial ship you get some gold and you could at least survive the upcoming storm.
Personal responsibility. MidasGoldGroup.com, 855-322-GOLD. Thanks for joining us. It's a Gold Standard Radio Show with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.